revenue in order for the federal government to meet the 2020 budget target. Note that...
Point of order. Honorable Faleke, what's your point of order?
My name is James Abiodun Faleke. I'm raising a point of order on the motion being moved by my colleague because the issue is discussed is already an act of the National Assembly. And he cannot use a motion to suspend an act of the National Assembly. This is my point of order.
Honorable Faleke is right, but Honorable Idem, the Act of National Assembly, Honorable Faleke, does it have a commencement date? What is the commencement date? It's in operation. No, I thought it was already. By the way, wasn't it suspended? Is it already in operation? Honorable Idem.
It has not been suspended.
Which makes Faleke's point then, that if it has not been suspended, we cannot use a motion to even temporarily alter an act. I see what he means. So it has to be by way of amendment, if at all. Do you understand? We cannot use a motion to alter an act. So I think Honorable Faleke's motion is point of order is sustained. Honorable Fakeye.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My name is Honorable Femi Fakeye, and I represent the people of Ifedayo, Boluwadua in Life Federal Constituency. I am from Osun State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to move a motion of urgent public importance on the need for a declaratory support for the re-election of Dr. Akinwumi Adesina as President of the African Development Bank. And I also request, Honorable Speaker, to allow the rules to be suspended so that I can take the motion right away. Thank you. I so move.
Elumelu's motion, and you were supposed to second it. Yes. We'll take it again. So Honorable Elumelu move the motion, then Honorable Fakeye will second it.
Motions adopted include the need for federal government to support the second-term ambition of Akinwumi Adesina as President of Africa Development Bank from Minority Leader Ndudi Elumelu.
Godwin Elumelu, and I represent the good people of Anocho Federal Constituency. I'm from Delta State. Mr. Speaker, we come under Order 8, Rule 4 and 7, that this House do take it as a matter of urgent national importance to address the issue of African Development Bank as it relates to Nigerian investment in that bank. What is going on is a matter of trying to deprive Nigeria their investment from being recognized and being upheld. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I call on fellow colleagues that will take this as a matter of urgent national importance so that we can address the issue that is currently going on. I so submit. For Africa UNECA in Khartoum, Sudan, in August of 1963, an agreement was reached establishing the African Development Bank. And the agreement was co-signed by 23 African governments, including Nigeria. Further note that in 1964, the agreement came into force with a mission of fighting poverty and standard of living on the African continent, as well as promoting the investment of public and private capital through the implementation of projects and programs that are likely to contribute to the economic and social development of the African region. Aware that on the 8th of May 2015, a distinguished Nigerian and one-time Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, was elected the presumptive President of African Development Bank, emerging as the first Nigerian to hold this office. further aware that African Development Bank, under the leadership of Dr. Adesina, has been very remarkable in steering the organization and its presence highly visible and impactful in less than 5 years of his headship. Concerned that recently, a group of whistleblowers petitioned Dr. Adesina accusing him of 16 breaches of the bank code of conduct, some of which include private gains, impediments to efficiency, preferential treatment, and involvement in political activities, which Dr. Adesina has continued to deny. Further concerned that on investigation by the Ethics Committee of the Board of Directors, the allegations were found to be frivolous, unsubstantiated, lack merit, and therefore exonerated Dr. Adesina on all 16 allegations. The Chairman, Board of Governors, being satisfied that the committee had done a thorough job, having followed all known rules and procedures of the bank in handling such cases, declared Adesina exonerated. Worried that though the Ethics Committee of the Board of Directors followed established law governing African Development Bank in arriving at their decision in absolving Dr. Adesina of the allegations, the United States Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, in a letter to the chairperson of the bank, Niale Koba, rejected the verdict of the committee and called for the independent investigation into the allegations against Dr. Adesina, whose tenure is due for renewal given the fact that he is the only contender to the office. Disturbed that this interference portends a grave danger to the independence and laws governing the establishment of this organization, and if not addressed, will be tantamount to undermining the hard-earned reputation of the bank. Troubled that this action may be an attempt to discredit Adesina from seeking another term at the helm of Africa's largest multilateral lender, former African leaders, in their wisdom, led by former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and signed by 11 other former African heads of state, and endorsed by 4 former African leaders, issued a press statement showing the grave danger it portends to disregard the laws governing an institution such as African Development Bank, as well as stating in clear terms that no nation, no matter how powerful, has a veto power over the African Development Bank. Further trouble that if this sort of witch hunting and unnecessary harassment is not put to check and discouraged, it may become a recurring decimal, thereby destabilizing the stability the bank has enjoyed for decades and the intended results of the steady decrease. They have therefore resolved to urge the Board of African Development Bank to halt all further investigation of the President, Aki Adesina, and let the rule of law prosper. 2, that this House do endorse Dr. Adesina's campaign for a second term at the helm of Africa's largest multilateral lender and wish him a stable tenure ahead. Thirdly, that this House do urge the federal government to call on all African leaders to intervene and rally around him and see to the end of this legal crisis. I so move.
The body of your motion spelled everything out. Just put some flesh, 1 minute, and then we'll move on, take any other.
African Development Bank, when Dr. Adesina took over, the paid-up capital was $93 billion. But within the space from 2015 to date, Dr. Adesina was able to increase the paid-up capital to $208 million. But not only that, Mr. Speaker, Dr. Adesina has succeeded in protecting the interests of Africans as it relates to agriculture and other investment that is very endearing to the African continent. And Dr. Adesina has brought to bear the independence of the African Development Bank, making sure that nobody interferes with the affairs of the African continent. And this has not gone down very well with some other Western countries. And that informs why they are trying all possible best to stain his image. And given that he has another 5 years, ending the 5 years that he's currently operating on, the issue of now being reconfirmed for another 5 years is what is bringing all this in about. And so Western countries are trying to stop him, trying to stop Nigeria from enjoying that position. And this is why we feel that this House owes it as a duty to stand up and be heard as it relates to this issue that is lingering on. And Mr. Speaker, Dr. Adeshina was a former Minister of Agriculture who distinguished himself very well in the course of his steering the affairs of Agricultural Ministry. And this, I think, that this House owes it to Nigerian people to ensure that even the young entrepreneurs in the African continent who have found it very, very easy to accessing the loans that are availed to them, the African entrepreneurs, through the support and the support of Dr. Adeshina's leadership. And these are the things that are making it difficult for them to appreciate him. They feel that he's more of African member than globally. But he has continuously said that it's better to ensure that the African people decide their fate than for allow others to decide their fate. And for this reason, he's been described as a tribalist. And this is why they are fighting him, and the American government is trying to force him out of office. So, Mr. Speaker, I pray that this House please support this motion, and let us send a strong signal that this man comes from a nation that cannot be told with. I so submit.
I think it's very clear that since Dr. Akinwumi got to this job, on merit, first of all, let me even comment as an aside that I was privileged to be at his inauguration on September 1, 2015. And I was proud to be a Nigerian on that day. And the guy has not lost sight of his assignment since he got there. He has boosted the capital base of that bank from 93 billion naira, dollars rather, in 2015 to 208 billion right now as we speak. That is the highest capital base for this 64-year-old bank. That's number one, very critical. Why is it critical for us as Africans? We are about to enter into a new phase for African industrialization. If not for this COVID-19, this coming month of July would have been the commencement date for the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. But now, because of COVID-19, it's been moved to January 2021. With this capital base, Africa is positioned to move into the next level to industrialize the continent. And that is, to me, the problem with the Western shareholders in this company. Because with the AFCFTA, all the things we used to import from the West, from the East, chances are over time will begin to get manufactured here. We don't expect the Western world to be clapping at that kind of prospect. To me, that is the core of their objection. Now, how would you object and do it contrary to the law and the rule book for the bank? The ethics committee of the bank has put this guy into a lot of investigation over a 3-month period. And they came to the conclusion that there was nothing missing, nothing amiss with the management. But suddenly, our Western collaborators or shareholders, they now say, well, fine, we still want an independent investigation. Where in the clause, where in the book of the bank is that written? So they cannot be bringing extra legal process or procedure that doesn't exist to now waylay this guy who has done very well for Africa. Mr. Speaker, before I sit down, I want us to now note that this guy has been so Afrocentric since he got to that seat in 2015. As we speak, a few weeks ago, that bank, under his leadership, gave $10 billion for African countries to fight this corona. You know, if not for that, I don't know what would have happened to us. Even in America, where they are making noise, we see how many people are dying day by day by day by day with all their wealth. But here, we thank God that it hasn't really gone that virulent. But I'm saying the guy has done very well, and I believe because he's so focused on Africa, these people are like, oh no, that is our money. Well, it's your money, but you are a shareholder. And the largest shareholder in this company is Nigeria, followed by Egypt. So we have to talk and we have a voice. So I want us to use our voice to support the man for the second term. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Osai.
I represent local Okwanik Federal Constituency of Delta State. Mr. Speaker, there's no African man that will not support the way Additional have run the African Development Bank. But the question the institution of National Assembly should always ask himself, that when such matter that involves international politics comes, the basis upon which we make our decisions should be based on facts. Ordinarily, I would have said and suggested that before we make a resolution of such magnitude, we could have gotten the Ethics Committee report, we could have gotten other reports, but at the same time, it's a Nigerian that is in this office that have done well, clear by the Ethics Committee, using internal mechanism to address the issue. But at the same time, we also urge that we should also go forward in making sure that this report reaches every honorable member. So that when we are asked tomorrow, now under what basis do we make this resolution? Under what basis do we reach this agreement? We will now be basing it based on facts. Because in international politics, we have to be careful when we are saying that, yes, Nigeria has also been cheated in this continental bank. Nigeria have a lot of money deposit in this bank, and yet the agreement reached with this bank and Nigeria has been breached severally. But at the same time, was one of those committee members who cleared Adesina from the rice mess when he was the Minister of Agriculture. So I can vouch for his integrity. I can vouch for his credibility. And I believe this resolution will go a long way in sustaining the African freedom, in sustaining that no any other continent will come and direct Africans on the way to run its activity. Under this ground, Mr. Speaker, I waive the issues of bringing the facts before we make these resolutions. And I urge every member to support this motion with the speed of light.
Thank you. Ayes have it. Honorable Mongonu.
I have a matter of urgent public importance that I am craving the indulgence of this House to consider it as urgent and take it now. The matter concerns the urgent need for partial reopening of our airports, with at least one airport in each of the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. This is because the Federal Ministry of Aviation intends to open only Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. So this motion is craving in the indulgence of the House to pass a resolution to the effect that in at least one geopolitical zone, one airport should be opened partially for commercial flights. Thank you. Motion is the urgent need for partial reopening of our airports with at least one airport in each of the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. The House notes that the Nigerian government closed its airport to the international traffic on March 23rd, and a week later, all the local traffics were also stopped following the discovery of the first index case of COVID-19 pandemic to curtail the spread of the virus. Also note that the coronavirus pandemic has brought global air travel to an unprecedented halt, as the United Nations World Tourism Organization said that 100% of 217 countries worldwide have COVID-19 related travel restrictions in place. Such measures, the World Tourism Organization says, represent the most severe restriction on international travel in history. Also note that most countries in the world have maintained guided local flights for easy movement of people, especially the essential workers and goods, but banned international flights. Aware that the continued ban on local flights will further suffocate the economy and equally cripple the local air transport sector, including several other major ancillary businesses directly or indirectly linked to it, and thereby escalate the unemployment situation in the country. Further aware that some of the airlines and other service providers within the industry immediately sent their staff on compulsory leave without pay, and thus brought untold hardship to many homes directly or indirectly connected to the affected employees. Also aware that all the statutory agencies like the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria Fund, Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology, Zaria, the Nigeria Meteorological Agency, and the Air Accident and Investigation Bureau, which generates their revenue when the aeroplanes are flying, are struggling to pay their staff salary at the moment. Concerned that traveling within the country has become severe nightmare as a result of the poor state of our roads, and the challenging security situation makes the opening of our airports more imperative. Also concerned that most of the airplanes now lying idle at the various airports across the country will require huge sums of money in hard currency to service them if efforts are not made to put them back into operation, that posing more hardships for the operators. And the prayers are, the House urges Mr. President to immediately direct the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and Ministry of Aviation and its agencies to commence local flights, beginning with the opening of at least one airport in each of the 6 geopolitical zones, to give all zones a sense of belonging and ensure equity and fairness. Urges the federal government to direct relevant agencies of the Ministry of Aviation to develop acceptable standard operating procedure that will be in tandem with the Nigerian Center for Disease Control for the airlines and workers. Further directs Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria Fund and Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority to ensure that airports and aircrafts are routinely disinfected promptly. Mandates the House Committee on Aviation, Legislative Compliance, and Ad hoc Committee on COVID-19 to monitor compliance and report back to the House within 2 weeks for further legislative action. I so move.
Straightforward motion, and I think all Honorable Mongono is asking for is that instead of opening 1 or 2 airports, we should open airports in 1 per zone. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Fakaya, what's your motion, please?
I remain Alhaji Mohammed Omar Bio. I represent the entire people of Barutin and Kama Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I am from Kwara State. Mr. Speaker, I rise under Order 824, matter of urgent public importance, on the urgent need to aid the people of Barutin and Kama Federal Constituency of Kwara State over rainstorm disaster that occurred between May 17 and May 25th this year at different intervals.
Honorable Bio, please move that we suspend our rules to allow you to take this. This is a third motion of urgent public. It's against our rules. Those in support that we suspend our rules to allow us to take yet another motion of urgent public importance, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Bio, move your motion.
Remain Mohammed Omar Bio. I represent the entire people of Barutin and Kama Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Kwara State. Mr. Speaker, the House knows that Barutin and Kama Federal Constituency of Kwara State is one of the federal constituencies in Nigeria with 2 local governments and several towns and villages. The House further knows that between May 17th and 25th of this year, there are heavy downpours at different intervals and cause a lot of havoc to several communities in the constituency. Take cognizance that the effect of the rainstorm resulted in the death of an old harmless woman and caused destruction of many properties, houses, and other infrastructures worth millions of naira, and generally rendered many constituents homeless in various communities as Kenu, Boria, Yakparu, Yakura, Okuta, Ningurume, Bure, Bushiru, Banara, Biogberu, Shia, Kayama, Kemanji, and Naboki in Barkin and Kayama federal constituencies of Kwara State. Further take cognizance that despite the lingering COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria, which requires social distancing and careful selection of who to stay with, the victims of this disaster have been rendered homeless, and virtually all of them are seeking refuge in different places in the constituencies, making them prone to infection and spread of COVID-19. Worried that the destruction and effect of this rainstorm disaster cannot be remedied except with urgent intervention of government and its agencies. Resolve to urge the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development to intervene in the plight of victims of this disaster. Further urge National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to urgently come to the aid of victims by providing relief material. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I so move.
Chikedu Oga, representing the good people of Azasa to Federal Constituency and from Ebonyi State. The matter of urgent public importance on a sudden increment of the tariff on DSTV multi-choice services. Mr. Speaker, note that DSTV multi-choice have increased their tariff up to 15% in all their...
President Muhammadu Buhari felicitates with the 9th Assembly on first anniversary. Senate to criminalize stigmatization of rape victims, plus challenges of investment in post-COVID-19 in focus. Welcome to Panorama, reaching you from the Enugu Network Center. I am Mina Adobe Okobasi. First on our lineup today on Panorama is COVID-19 update. Nigeria has recorded 409 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total of confirmed cases to 13,873. Lagos State still maintains the highest cases of COVID-19 with a total of 201 cases, followed by FCT with 85 cases. Delta State has 22 cases, Edo 16, while Nasarawa, Borno and Kaduna have 14 cases each, Bauchi 10 cases, Rivers 9, while Enugu and Kano have 5 cases each. Also, Ogun and Ondo have 4 cases each, while Bayelsa, Kebbi and Plateau have 2 cases each, pegging the current cases of COVID-19 cases in Nigeria at 13,873 with 4,351 discharged cases and 382 deaths. President Muhammadu Buhari has commended the leadership and members of the 9th National Assembly on their first anniversary and extolled their sense of duty and diligence in handling issues related to the development of the country. who commended the vision, courage and patriotism of the National Assembly, in a statement noted the zeal at which members process bills that directly impact the welfare of Nigerians and how they courageously find common grounds to move the country forward. The President particularly expressed appreciation to the Senate President Ahmed Lawan and Speaker of the House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila in using their wealth of experience, wisdom and knowledge to ensure a peaceful working relationship amongst lawmakers between both chambers, the judiciary and the executive, by always focusing on the larger picture of nation building. As the 9th National Assembly commemorates the landmark, President Buhari also noted how the legislature has brought dignity and honor to the country and looks forward to more years of harmonious working relationship with focus on improving the livelihood of citizens, thereby creating an enabling environment for a prosperous nation where both the young and old can fully realize their dreams. The House of Representatives has passed the amended 2020 appropriation bill of 10.801 trillion naira. The approved amount is 300 billion naira more than the revised figure of 10.5 million naira. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that the amount is 300 billion naira more than the amount submitted by the executive.
Appropriation bill was laid before plenary for amendments about 2 weeks ago. The lawmakers were in agreement with the executive that considering the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, which led to a drop in the price of crude oil at the international market and the daily production output, there is the need for a downward review of the budget. Today, the appropriation bill has been passed, but 300 billion naira more than what the executive submitted.
The components of the health sector is in the MTEF, so we decided to pull it out from the MTEF to the budget so that every Nigerian will see why the amendment is done. If you leave it under the MTEF, nobody will know it. MTEF is just a document, but budget is a book that anybody can go in and see everything inside.
A breakdown of the amended bill shows that 4.9 trillion naira is for recurrent expenditure, 2.9 trillion is allocated to debt servicing, 2.4 trillion naira goes to contribution to development fund for capital expenditure, while 4.22 billion naira is for statutory transfers.
10,801,544,664,642 naira only.
During the consideration for passage, House Speaker noted the need to take care of demands of resident doctors, and 400 billion naira was therefore moved from service-wide votes to the budget for Ministry of Health. The expiry date of the amended bill is 31st of December 2020. The Appropriations, Finance and all committees that contributed to the speedy passage of the amended bill were commended.
I want to thank all members for your unwavering support, members across party lines, across all ethnic groups.
Also approved by House members during plenary is the $5.5 billion loan request from the President to fund the budget, priority projects of the federal government, and projects in support of state governments. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
That the cases of rape are becoming more frequent in Nigeria is not the only concern of social crusaders, but more problematic is that most of these cases go unreported for fear of labeling. To address this, the Senate is considering a bill that seeks to criminalize any form of stigmatization against victims of rape and insurgency. The bill has passed second reading. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports.
2 weeks after the Senate considered a motion for the provision of stiffer penalty for persons found guilty of rape, the legislative chamber is looking at the socio-psychological aspect of this crime, as it is now canvassing punitive sanction for any person who stigmatized victims of rape or insurgency. The bill, sponsored by Senator Sani Musa, also provides that victims who would have been out of work be reabsorbed and their entitlements paid by their employers.
Every person Community and institutions shall protect and uphold the right to dignity and freedom of association of victims of rape and insurgency.
That we must look for a way of ensuring that these young girls or women do not feel stigmatized at all. What has happened in many countries is that they profile those who have committed rape, so that if you are looking for a house, people look at your name and they've committed rape before, you find it extremely difficult to get a house in that neighborhood.
And to provide for the prosecution and punishment of any persons or group of persons who stigmatize such victims with the view to uphold and protect their fundamental right to dignity and free association as provided by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The bill that seeks to provide for the establishment of Federal College of Traditional, Complementary and Alternative Medicine in Nigeria, sponsored by Senator Ibrahim Oloriegbe, and the one that seeks to repeal the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Act of 2010 and to reenact the Nigerian Local Content Development and Enforcement Commission, sponsored by Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, also passed second reading.
In the light of our present-day realities, especially the ongoing challenges of COVID-19 pandemic, and the need to find cure for it from available local apps and regional medicine, the need for a college so that this cannot be overemphasized.
The provision of a robust and transparent monitoring and reporting system to ensure delivery of Nigerian local content.
Right now, under the mining sector, if you go, there are so many foreigners. They only engage Nigerians as laborers.
It's important for us to keep the Oil and Gas Content Development Act because of the sensitive and very technical nature of that.
Senate, in a motion by Senator Biodun Olujimi, honored the late former governor of Old Ondo State, Bamidele Olumilua, who died on the 4th of this month. Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters has screened Justice Monica Domban Mensem for appointment as President Court of Appeal, during which some of the legislators described her as an eminent jurist fit for the position. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Enugu State Government says it's intensifying efforts to make the Institute of Management and Technology a degree-awarding institution as part of measures to provide quality education in the state. The governor of the state gave this indication when he inspected projects at the institute in Enugu. Susan Eze has details.
Its quest to restore the past glory of the Institute of Management and Technology, IMT Enugu, through improvement of infrastructure and upgrade of its certification from diploma to degree awarding. The state government had approved a special intervention fund for the upgrade of facilities in the institution. Some of the projects nearing completion include a medical center, a registry for documentation, modern conveniences, among others. Funds were also approved for the institution to pursue the reaccreditation of 41 academic programs. Other works in progress include the rehabilitation of internal roads, renovation of the administrative and other blocks. And Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi was at the school to see the level of work at some of the sites.
So today we saw 5 state-of-the-art projects that are at the verge of being completed. All these structures have not been there before. It has been form of dilapidated infrastructure, some non-existent, like the medical center. It's not been there before. And it's a well-thought-out program, it's a well-thought-out decision for the state government to quickly intervene on those very important structures, especially the exams record and the open registry that will keep the records of the students.
The governor, who was guided on the tour by the chairman of the IMT Governing Council, Mrs. Ifeoma Nwobodo, and other management staff of the institution, expressed satisfaction with the progress of work so far. In Enugu, Susan Eze, NTA News.
Nigeria, just like every other country in the world, is facing a global pandemic that has affected lifestyles and life generally in so many ways. As the fight against the dreaded COVID-19 rages, correspondent Chidi Okorafor takes a look at the lessons learned so far.
COVID-19 has created challenges and problems that will take time before going away. However, what can be done to cope with the situation is for one to be conscious of it, remain vigilant, and adjust their lifestyles in order to face the magnitude of the challenges. A cross-section of residents of Enugu Metropolis spoke to NTA News on the lessons the COVID-19 pandemic has taught them.
It has taught us now that everything that every human being requires, how to live his life in a very good manner. Understand that by the reason of that, you keep an environment very, very neat, even your body. And now we have learned that knowledge is the best answer to health.
The COVID-19 era also presents opportunity to reevaluate the appropriate goal of business, economic activities, ideologies, and social conventions, as well as the goal of local, national, and international governance structures.
So after this, it's an opportunity for Nigeria, and particularly Southeast governors, to reinforce, rehabilitate, construct new hospitals. The lesson there is that our leaders should be proactive. Our leaders should think out of the box to seize this opportunity to do the needful.
Most of the respondents are hopeful that life will return to normal once the virus is defeated. The question is when, but only time shall tell. In Enugu, Chidi Okrafo, NTA News.
Let's take a short break here. Panorama continues in just a moment. Stay tuned. Welcome back. As the war against the dreaded coronavirus rages, the prevalence of the virus has no doubt changed the face of socio-economic activities in the country. With more people adopting new ways of conducting their businesses, correspondent Amechi Pius examines challenges and areas of investments in the country post-COVID-19.
It's a virus that has taken the world by surprise, one that has forced nations of the world, including Nigeria, to evolve strategies to check the spread of the coronavirus. Economic and social activities have been grounded with government introducing measures to tackle the disease. Businesses both in the formal and informal sectors have been under lock and key, except for those who provide essential services such as food, health, security, and the environment. Part of government protocol is social distancing, washing of hands, and use of face masks and sanitizers. All of these have made it difficult for most businesses to operate effectively. One area that has become most viable in the precarious situation is the use of the internet. Virtually all business conduct online transactions, which experts say brings to the fore the need for operators to deepen their digital capacity to be relevant in the new business environment.
Going forward, we wouldn't have to pay your rent again. The size of personnel that you need will drop. So while you spend money here, you may gain money from the other side. The other one again is that you may suddenly discover that your market has actually expanded. Beyond just selling to Enugu market, you are now selling to the whole world, not just even to Nigeria. So yes, we've lost your local market a degree, but you have expanded globally.
What it means, therefore, is that more business owners in all sectors of the economy are fast catching up with the new trend of electronic transactions, thereby shrinking their human capital and development. Economic experts say has made it imperative for people to develop their entrepreneurial capacity to survive in the country post-COVID-19.
Most micro small businesses are down. A good percentage of them will be out by the time we are through with COVID. The reason is because many of them live from basic cash, and then survive on basic cash they get. And for 3 months, going to the fourth, most of them will not be back again. Those who will come back because of the nature of their businesses, especially if you're in the food angle or the health angle, or that you are lucky, maybe the state and the federal government are able to maybe bring in stimulus to help them to recapitalize and then go forward.
And stakeholders are of the opinion that investment will be more in the health, agriculture, information and communication technology, as well as education sectors of the economy. In Enugu, Amechi Pius, NTA News.
And taking a cue from that, our discussion was centered on challenges of investment post-COVID-19. And of course, our man and our guest is a past president of Enugu State Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, a surveyor and developer, Mr. Ugochukwu Chime. It's good to welcome you to Panorama today, sir.
Thank you so much, Nina.
I'm sure you watched that report, but
yes.
Before we go on, let's take a holistic picture of what the general business environment is like, even right now that the country is battling with COVID-19.
There has been a massive disruption in the way businesses are held and in the way most of the businesses are surviving. And that disruption have led to a lot of changes, some positive, some negative. We found out that some businesses that have been able to upgrade to IT platform in disseminating their information and reaching out to their clients were able to survive and manage better than those other companies that were dependent on physical contact. And that is why I see that globally, and even in Nigeria here, you find out that there has been a massive negative impact on the small, medium-scale industries that depended on low capital. They have had to use that capital which they had to fend for themselves in this period where they are now earning fresh income. And that is a massive area that government needs to look at because they are the higher percentage of the working class, the small and medium-scale enterprises. Okay. They have to depend on their capital to feed their family in this period. And it is also important for us to know that most of our activities heretofore were dependent on that physical contact. We visit people to discuss, business, we visit. So what has happened that it has unveiled for us a need to move on with the technological age. And that is something that is quite positive in itself because we have also discovered that we can bury somebody without massive investment of funds on all kinds of expenditure. Okay. So these are some of the things that have unveiled to us, the changes that have come in. Okay, and looking at what you just explained now, what are the challenges of investment that you have identified this period in this country? The most important challenge, I would say, number one, is the fact that our legal infrastructure is not prepared for the technological advancements and other advancements we have in business. Mm-hmm. The regulatory framework for those businesses are not yet there. Where there are disputes between a bank, for instance, and somebody who made an electronic transfer, the current laws does not protect the customers of the bank. And that is also what you find in other sectors of the economy. If you pay somebody for goods and services and they didn't deliver electronically, you have further challenges in proving what has happened. Second area is we found out that a lot of businesses don't have data that was necessary for them to be able to do their business. We have found out that data is so critical. You have to dimension the space that you're operating in. And we don't have data. And because we don't have this data, most of our members in the SEMA and other areas have had challenges of starting a business with high ideas, but discovering that the reality is that they have a very minuscule amount of patronage and they have to close shop. So we believe that these are two critical areas of challenge we have. Furthermore, is the area of the challenge we have in terms of financing. Okay. Most businesses are not receiving the required finance to take them to the next level of their operation. And I believe that if some of these areas are looked into, the area of the operating environment, institutional capacity, and then the issue area of data and the area of finance, we have a lot of creative young men and women who are out there willing to do business. Okay. All right, so the outbreak of coronavirus has, reinforced the need for businesses to expand their digital capacity. How do you react to that? Very good. So many of my friends, both within here and outside here, have upgraded. But one of the challenges we found out that also they are not aware of the risks also that are there in the digital age. The risk of hacking, the risk of somebody taking over what you have prepared, their data or other areas. So we have increased capacity to depend on the digital age, but also we're asking people, can we get the security experts, cyber security experts to advise us, because every new development has its own attendant risk. And that must be looked into. Okay. Now, moving forward post-COVID-19, what are the new, areas of investment you think that this nation should actually focus on? According to Maslow's theory of hierarchy of need of man, it is about food, clothing, shelter. So, health, agriculture, there are low-hanging fruits. Education, low-hanging fruit. Housing, low-hanging fruit. And then services industry. That has blossomed over quite some time. You find out that
we have to look at what the people need, because we are solution carriers as investors. If you are carrying a solution, it must be the solution that the people need.
Okay.
And that is how we have to dimension the behavioral changes that have occurred.
Okay.
Dimension also what people are going to look for. How do we serve them better? Because we are paid for the services we render in our goods and services. So I think that what will happen is that these various sectors, we need to sit down, brainstorm, and then collaborate in finding out and doing a proper feasibility studies. What has changed? Because a lot of changes have come in. We need to look at what have changed and how can we manage that change in a more proactive way.
Okay, still talking about change, how do you expand our digital base to promote electronic services?
There is an urgent need for us to understand what has happened. An expansion of it will mean our getting the experts in that field to come and talk to us and find out how we can now use technology to do a lot of things. Few days ago, the Vice President of this country commissioned a project in Benue State electronically.
Okay.
So we have to change our mindset in order to adapt to what we need to do.
Before I let you go, Surveyor, what lessons do you think that we have learned during this period?
The greatest lesson is that we have been lukewarm to the changes that is taking place globally, and that is the greatest factor. And that factor is that we have not been up to at par, at speed with the changes that are taking place. It took all of us by surprise. We found out that we could do with less of so many things, and we needed to do more. So we have to sit down and be able to analyze some of the changes that have come on board, and then in particular, ask government to upscale the laws, the legal infrastructure that guides human interaction in our environment, in our businesses, in our various activities. And when we do that, we'll find out that what has come as a challenge can be turned around to be a blessing for all of us to do better.
Mr. Ugochukwu Chime, I want to thank you so much for your presence today on Panorama. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, to be speaking with the past president, Enugu State Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, ESIMA, Mr. Ugochukwu Chime, a surveyor and developer. Moving on, the Imo State Police Command says the fight against criminality is yielding positive results in view of the number of arrests made, particularly within the period of ease of lockdown in the state. The Commissioner, Imo State Police Command, Isaac Akimboboye, made this known while parading suspects in Owerri. Lorita Arinze Egwim has details.
Suspects were arrested following increased surveillance by officers of the Imo State Police Command. Among those paraded were 2 females who allegedly stole a 2-year-old boy at Gokana local government area of Rivers State and brought him to be sold in Imo State. They were, however, intercepted by the officers on stop and search duty. Others are suspected kidnappers of a businessman in Owerri, armed robbers and suspects arrested for possession of firearms. The Commissioner, Imo State Police Command, Isaac Akimoyede, reiterates his resolve to fish out criminal elements terrorizing residents of Imo State. He knows that the kidnapped victims were rescued unhurt, while some of them have been reunited with their families.
We shall take the fight against violent crimes to the den of kidnappers and armed robbers. I also promised to make Imo too hot for criminals unless they leave Imo or change from their wicked ways.
Various items, including arms, ammunition, and cars, were recovered from the suspects in Owerri. Lorita Arinze Egwim, NTA News.
And that's Panorama on the network studios of the NTA. Many thanks for watching. Have a blessed day ahead.